Let's talk a little bit about conversion franchising. As you already know, conversion franchising involves going to somebody who's already in an independent business similar to yours and getting them to fly your flag, getting them to use your brand, follow your systems. And conversion franchising over the years has been very effective in certain independent marketplaces, especially markets that have been highly fragmented. So if you look over the years, you take a look at conversion franchising has had a huge impact on businesses like the real estate marketplace and the travel agency marketplace. So we see this out there in a number of instances where people go out to people who are in a particular marketplace and will try to convert them. Now, let's talk a little bit about the marketing process when we're going to market to those conversion franchisees. First of all, the nice thing about conversion franchising is they're very easy to identify. We can use lists, they're very easy to focus in on based on particular media, etc. So the great thing about conversion franchising is it's easy to identify who our prospects are. We can use direct contact industry publications, we can use public relations, we can use trade shows that are industry specific. All those things are going to be effective. And so that's the good news. The important thing to understand in marketing to conversion franchising is the message. The message is going to be different than the message that we send to a prospective startup franchisee. And in particular, what you're dealing with in franchising is sort of the fear versus greed messaging. And in talking with conversion franchising, you really want to focus on the fear aspect of the sales process. And in particular, when you're talking about marketing to these people, it's important that you convey the message of what is happening in your marketplace and why what you have is a better solution for that marketplace. We've seen a number of instances where people have sort of muddled along in their industry without realizing that the fact of the matter is that their industry is changing. It's undergoing dramatic changes. And sometimes you have to hit your prospects over the head with what those changes are. We saw a great brochure some years ago, and it said, it's a franchise brochure communicating the message, and it said, what do the independent practicing OD, the corner pharmacist, and the corner optician have in common? And then it said, extinction. And that is really a powerful message to say, this business model as it has worked in the past is going away. And that is really part of what the message is that you want to convey to your prospective franchisees. So it's important that you resolve sort of message conflicts. If your brochure says that this is a great business to be in and it's easy and everything else, that's going to be a conflict in terms of what you're sending out to a prospective conversion candidate. The other thing that's important with a conversion candidate is really focusing on incremental value. They've already gotten some of your value proposition. Some of your value proposition in terms of initial training, they feel they may not even need. Some of their value proposition some of the value proposition that you offer to a prospective candidate are things that they may not understand the value to and how that's going to impact them. So you really have to focus on communicating incremental value when you're communicating with these conversion franchisees. They want to know if they're going to be better off today than they're going to be tomorrow. And lastly, from the standpoint of who you target and sort of the process you go through to qualify conversion candidates, there's some good news there and some bad news. And the good news is it's very easy to see if they're good operators. If you go into their operation, you take a look at it and you see how it's run. But the bad news is you need to be very careful about these people because they're going to be very independent. A typical conversion candidate is someone who is going to have their own ideas about how they want to run the business. You know they're entrepreneurial going in, so they may not be as willing to follow the system for you. And because of that fact, and because of the fact they've been in the business before, you may have a more difficult time enforcing post-termination non-compete covenants with these conversion candidates. So you need to be very specific in terms of the questions that you're going to ask these candidates, and you need to be very careful in terms of your qualification process to make sure that there's somebody that you really want. And what I tell people is, if you're looking at this as a spectrum, and on that spectrum, you've got on one end of the spectrum, you've got the top prospects in a marketplace, and on the other you've got the worst prospects in the marketplace, chances are the guy who's the top prospect in the marketplace doesn't want your franchise anyhow. They think they can do it without you. They've already built that market. They think that they know the marketplace. They think that they're the best out there. They're unlikely to be buyers for you. Whereas the people on the bottom end, while they probably want to buy your franchise, are probably people you don't want as part of that process. So what we tell people is focus on the number 2 prospect in the market or the number 3 prospect. And the message to the number 2 prospect is, we're going to help you become number 1 in this marketplace. We're going to help you get to the next level with your growth. And that's the greed part of the message, or the value proposition part of the message. But the fear part of the message is, but if you decide not to go with us, we're going to go to the number 3 person in the marketplace, and we're going to help them become the number 1 person in the marketplace. The number 1 person may slip to number 2, and you're going to be number 3 in the marketplace. And you have to communicate that message very subtly, but it's not as blatantly as I just did right there. You certainly wouldn't say it like that. But what you do want to do is you want to make sure that you subtly communicate to them that you're coming into the marketplace, that you have a value proposition, that you'll help them do a better job of succeeding. You want to be very selective in terms of who you focus on. Remember, focus a little bit more on the fear side of the message, that there's changes going on in this marketplace and you can either be on the bus or you're off the bus. And if you focus on those kinds of things, you're going to do a better job in terms of your conversion marketing and your conversion marketing efforts.